This year, some Americans didn't celebrate the 4th, not because they forgot, but because they remember. If you felt a chill instead of fireworks, you weren't alone. I've done videos on chivalry, honor, and virtue, and I can tell you, what I see in the Republican Congress and the White House scares me. I've also done a series on Trump, Musk, Doge, and where we're at politically and economically, not to mention climate change and the other upheavals we're dealing with. I even wrote a cool song about it. Check it out. My point is, I see it, you see it. The changes are everywhere, and more than ever, we feel this country isn't ours anymore. In my 4th of July short, I asked, is this even our America anymore? Well, is it? And what can we do to bring America back to the people, ensure we get our voices heard in government, and protect our climate, our democracy, and our quality of life? We'll discuss that and more in this video. I'm Scott Layton, and welcome to the Renaissance Spirit. What happened to our America? The crisis we face. America today feels unrecognizable to many of us. Powerful people in Washington are making unilateral moves that defy the principles of accountability and democracy. Consider this. President Trump recently ordered airstrikes on Iranian nuclear sites without even notifying Democratic congressional leaders beforehand. Top Democrats in the Gang of Eight, those who by law should be briefed on major military actions, were kept completely in the dark until after the bombs had dropped. Republicans in Congress, for the most part, cheered on these strikes, while Democrats condemned the president's go-it-alone approach as reckless and unconstitutional. This is not normal. In a healthy democracy, war powers are debated and Congress has a say. Here, we have a president acting first and seeking permission never. It doesn't stop there. Look at the Supreme Court's recent actions. The court's conservative majority has been aggressively rewriting American law in ways that many of us never imagined possible. They gutted the nationwide right to abortion, overturning Roe v. Wade after nearly 50 years. They've slashed away at voting rights protections that stood for decades, like in Shelby County v. Holder, 2013, where the court struck down key parts of the Voting Rights Act, opening the door for a wave of restrictive voter laws targeting minorities. They even hamstrung our ability to fight climate change. In 2022, the court's 6-3 majority drastically curbed the EPA's authority to regulate greenhouse gases, undermining efforts to curb climate change and limiting what federal agencies can do. From reproductive freedom to voting to environmental protection, rights and safeguards we took for granted are being eroded at lightning speed. No wonder so many Americans are asking if this is even our America anymore. And then, adding insult to injury, the Republican-controlled Congress has become a rubber stamp. Just this past week, nearly every GOP lawmaker in the Senate rushed to support President Trump's latest signature bill, a massive package of tax cuts and spending cuts that Trump himself dubbed the One Big Beautiful Bill. They advanced it so fast that lawmakers likely hadn't even fully read or digested it, yet were too afraid of crossing Trump to slow down. Only 2 Republican senators dared to vote against this bill. One of them, moderate Senator Thom Tillis of North Carolina. Tillis stood up and said he cannot support the bill in its current form because it would slash tens of billions from Medicaid, hurting hospitals and rural communities in his state. What was the response? President Trump publicly attacked Tillis, blasting him on social media as a talker and complainer, not a doer, and vowed to back a primary challenger to take Tillis's Senate seat. The Supreme Court rolled back 5 decades of rights in 5 years. How do we get them back? The message to Republicans in Congress was loud and clear. Fall in line or be purged. Indeed, Tillis announced the very next day that he won't even run for re-election, citing how bipartisan, independent-minded leaders have become an endangered species in Washington. In short, one man, Trump, effectively controls the White House and Congress, and even members of his own party are terrified to oppose him, no matter what their conscience or constituents might say. When our government starts looking like a personality cult, when checks and balances collapse into yes men, it's a terrifying sign for our democracy. So is this even our America anymore? It hardly feels like it. But here's the thing, if we've lost our America, we the people can take it back. Throughout our history, whenever government leaders stopped listening to the people, it was mass movements and citizen action that corrected the course. We need that again. urgently. I'm talking about people in the streets using the most powerful tool in any democracy, their collective voice. And in fact, it's already starting. On June 14, 2025, millions of Americans poured into the streets in hundreds of No Kings protests across the country. No Kings, the very name of this mass rally tells you what it was about. It was a rejection of would-be authoritarianism, a demand that no president or party should rule like a king. From San Francisco to Chicago to small towns, ordinary Americans marched with signs saying, "Impeach Trump," and spelling out messages on beaches, all protesting the administration's extreme policies and power grabs. The crowds were huge. In San Francisco, they possibly reached 100,000 people, and similar large turnouts happened in cities like Chicago, Boise, and beyond. Look at these images. People of all backgrounds flooding the streets, demanding their voices be heard. This is what democracy looks like when the people take the wheel. Those protests were sparked by many grievances. A controversial immigration crackdown was one spark. But at heart, the message was the same. America belongs to its people, not to any one man or party. We've seen similar energy from the younger generation on other fronts, too. Just think of the climate movement. In New York City, tens of thousands of climate activists marched in the streets demanding an end to fossil fuels and real action to stop climate change. The crowd heard leaders declare that our movement must become too big and too radical to ignore. Whether it's climate, or gun violence, or racial justice, or democracy reform, the common thread is that real change comes when regular people band together in massive numbers. Marches, strikes, sit-ins, town halls, voting drives, all of it. We need a peaceful uprising of civic engagement in this country on a scale not seen in decades. Mass protests are just one piece. America needs a mass movement, an organized push on multiple fronts to bring power back to the people. That means not only marching in the streets, but also flooding our representatives' phone lines and inboxes with our voices, showing up at city council and school board meetings, volunteering for causes, supporting unions and community organizations, and yes, voting in every election from local to national. It's going to take all of us working together to steer this nation back toward government by the people, for the people. One protest isn't a movement. How do we turn this spark into a fire? As we build this mass movement, there's another battle we each must fight, and it's one that happens in our own minds. We have to guard against the manipulation and propaganda that are constantly trying to keep us dumb, divided, and distracted with culture wars. Let's be brutally honest. We are all being bombarded with propaganda in today's America. Political partisans and their media allies use social media, cable news, and internet echo chambers to divide, dominate, and disorient us. They want to demoralize those who'd oppose them, and they want to pit Americans against each other over race, gender, religion, and class so that we're too busy fighting each other to unite against the real abuses of power. We've seen how effective this strategy can be. Polarization in America is at its worst since at least the Civil War, according to some experts. That polarization opens the door for even more propaganda. The more divided we are, the easier it is to sell people on wild conspiracies and to gin up hatred of our fellow citizens. And then propaganda exploits that polarization, deliberately pushing outrageous lies or culture war bait to widen the divide further. The result? We end up duking it out with each other on Twitter or Facebook about Mr. Potato Head or whatever the outrage of the day is, while billionaires laugh all the way to the bank and politicians evade real accountability. It's a classic tactic, divide and conquer. As long as we're busy raging at our neighbors, we're not holding the powerful to account. No one has weaponized this toxic cycle more than Donald Trump. Even conservative analysts have described Trump as a genius-level propaganda operative who took Russian-style disinformation tactics and injected them straight into American politics. As president, he harnessed the megaphone of the office, a loyal right-wing media ecosystem, and armies of online trolls to blast out conspiracy theories and falsehoods at a scale we've never seen in this country. The result has been an assault on reality, an epistemic crisis where huge swaths of the population have difficulty distinguishing fact from fiction. When citizens can't even agree on basic facts, it becomes nearly impossible to have a functioning democracy. And that, sadly, is exactly what some of these propagandists want. To so confuse and divide us that we give up on democracy and let them grab power unchecked. So what do? We fight back with critical thinking, reason, and compassion. We have to become media literate like our lives depend on it, because in a sense, they do. That means verify information before believing or sharing it, seek out reputable news sources, and yes, multiple sources, especially for controversial claims, and learn to recognize the common tricks of propaganda, such as emotional manipulation, scapegoating, and false dilemmas. Don't fall for the clickbait meant to enrage you. Often it's there to distract you. We also need to step outside our bubbles and talk to each other as human beings. It's amazing how much the temperature drops when you have a real conversation with someone rather than trading barbs online. When we engage with our neighbors in good faith, listening, empathizing, finding common ground, we make it so much harder for demagogues to pit us against one another. Critical thinking and compassion are like antidotes to propaganda. They help us see through the lies and also remember that our fellow Americans are not the enemy, even when we disagree. The real enemies are ignorance, cynicism, and apathy, and those are enemies we can conquer with education, empathy, and engagement. How often do you question what you hear? All of these pieces, protest movements, civic engagement, media literacy, and critical thinking, come down to one core idea: choosing courage over fear and knowledge over ignorance. The challenges we face are huge. We've got a climate crisis bearing down on us, threatening our very future. We've got a democracy in peril, with leaders who act like the law doesn't apply to them and courts rolling back fundamental rights. We've got gross economic inequalities and social injustices that need urgent fixing. These problems won't solve themselves. It's easy to feel powerless or fall into despair. But remember, history is full of moments when ordinary people did extraordinary things to course-correct civilization. The civil rights movement of the 1960s, the environmental movement of the 1970s, the women's suffrage movement decades earlier, in each case, people who had courage and conscience changed the nation. Now it's our turn. We must summon the courage to speak out, to challenge the propaganda with truth, to stand up for neighbors who are under attack, and to defend the values of justice and equality even when it's uncomfortable. We must refuse to be intimidated by bullies, whether they sit in the Oval Office or troll us anonymously online. Choosing curiosity, courage, and conscience. That's what I call living the Renaissance spirit. It means believing that the story of our country isn't over, that we each carry a spark of the old Renaissance humanism that valued reason, art, and the dignity of the individual. It means realizing that we are the authors of the next chapter of history. And if history seems to be collapsing in real time around us, then someone has to narrate the fall and plant the seeds of what comes after. Why not us? Thank you for watching. You've just joined the Renaissance Spirit, a channel dedicated to a just, equitable, and humanitarian world. Here, we explore history, politics, culture, religion, personal growth, and the lessons of civilization, from ancient Rome to modern America. We believe the Renaissance isn't over. It's waiting inside anyone who chooses curiosity, courage, and conscience. Living the Renaissance spirit means engaging with history as a dialogue, not just with the past, but with the future. Our work is a message to posterity. Will they inherit justice and wisdom, or wonder why we failed to act? If you enjoyed this and want to be part of that dialogue, subscribe and turn on notifications. Take our Renaissance quiz to see if you carry the spark. Because if history is collapsing in real time, someone has to narrate the fall and plant the seeds of what comes after. And if this feels familiar, that's because it is. In our Democracy in Crisis series, we warned how unchecked executive power, weakened courts, and propaganda-driven politics could lead us here. Our next episode, What Happened to Our Fourth Estate, will show how the media's collapse enabled demagogues to rise. And we've done a series of videos on mass movements and what we can learn from America's black community, as well as what the Democrats need to do to have any chance of winning again. In our series Through the Lens, we discuss the tools of propaganda and how some Germans fought back. This episode is not a detour, it's a continuation, a real-time unfolding of the very themes we've been tracing for months. If you've been with us on this journey, you know the pattern. Now the stakes are just higher. Trump calls it the big, beautiful bill. I call it the final nail in democracy's coffin. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. I'm not the only one who's mad, am I? Live the Renaissance spirit. History has not died, only our understanding of it. Let's continue to learn, act, and keep that spirit alive. This Independence Day weekend, reclaim America by speaking up, voting, and showing up for each other.
This year, some Americans aren't celebrating July 4th, and honestly, can you blame them? Love, my liberty now covers up hypocrisy. I still believe. Do you still believe in something more than red and green? If silence speaks, then let me roar. Is this even America anymore? They gave the crown to a liar in disguise, while justice watched through closed, tired eyes. They wrote the laws in golden ink and dared us all to even think. I still believe. Do you still believe? Not in a name, but something here. And if we stand on rich men's war, we'll find a lake once more. He tried to end the vote, and now he writes the law. But we are not done yet, we never were.